Most of us have a complicated relationship with social media. Some of us are nostalgic for the time before it existed, while others have never known life without it. Some of us are able to build careers using just our phones, while others don't understand the purpose of shouting opinions into the void. But despite our personal feelings for it, social media has the ability to let people leave a legacy and a lasting impact, or a ghostly reminder of what once was. Join us for today's episode as we examine missing persons cases with eerie social media posts. Sierra LaMar. Sierra LaMar was just 15 when she disappeared from Morgan Hill, California. On the morning of March 16th, 2012, at around 6 a.m., she left her home in the area of Santa Teresa Avenue to walk to the bus stop and catch the bus to Ann Sobrato High School. She and her mother had recently moved to Morgan Hill. Prior to this, Sierra had grown up in Fremont, California, but her parents had recently divorced, and the teen was now living with her mother and her mother's boyfriend. Sierra was due that morning to catch the 7:35 bus. She was last heard from when she messaged a friend at 7:11 a.m., and the pair agreed to meet before class started. But the 15-year-old never turned up to the prearranged meeting place, and subsequently failed to attend her classes. Her mother learned of Sierra's absence when the school alerted her to it later that day via email at around 6 p.m. Frustratingly, hours had passed by this time. When investigators began looking into Sierra's disappearance, they discovered that there were no witnesses who could place her on the bus, and there was no CCTV to indicate where she had gone. By all accounts, Sierra had vanished somewhere between leaving the house and the bus stop. The following day, however, a new clue was found. The teen's mobile phone was located at an intersection about 2 miles from her house. The device was intact, and it appeared as if it had been thrown from a vehicle. Then, on the 18th, a pink handbag was discovered, abandoned by the side of the road in a cactus field, about 2 miles from the bus stop and 1 mile from where her phone was located. It was a Juicy branded item and had belonged to Sierra, even containing some of her clothing, including a top and a pair of jeans. Prosecutors would later state that the clothing had dirt stains on it and smelled like human urine. No further evidence of Sierra was found after this. Law enforcement, accompanied by volunteers, searched the area around her home and the bus stop. By all accounts, the terrain was difficult to navigate. It was filled with fields, hills, reservoirs, ravines, thick brush, and wooded areas. As well as looking for Sierra herself, searchers were instructed to keep an eye out for anything that appeared odd and out of place, and anything that may indicate a crime took place. Initially, investigators believed they were investigating a simple missing persons case, that Sierra had left of her own volition, met with an accident, or something else more mundane. But after discovering her discarded items on the side of the road, it seemed more and more likely that something sinister was afoot. Forensic specialists looked into Sierra's mobile phone and personal computer, but this revealed nothing useful. She wasn't speaking to anyone she shouldn't have been, wasn't dabbling in anything that might put her in danger, and she didn't appear to have been looking to run away. Eerily, her Twitter is still online today, giving a glimpse into the mind of a 15-year-old girl muddling her way through life. Her last tweet was a mundane one about her schoolwork, posted at 3:53 a.m. on the morning of March 16th. Cruelly, just a month after she vanished, hoaxers managed to make their way onto her account and tweet an explicit message. The post was quickly deleted, and the police later confirmed it to be a hoax, shattering the hopes of her family, friends, and some 4,000 followers who believed she was alive and attempting to get a message across. With little else to go on, investigators sent Sierra's handbag and its contents away for testing, hoping that the items would turn up something of note. Fortunately, they did. The crime lab was able to extract traces of DNA from the jeans, linking Sierra to a 21-year-old man named Antolin Garcia Torres. Initially, there was very little to say about Garcia Torres. He worked at a Safeway grocery store in Morgan Hill, drove a Volkswagen Jetta, and lived in an RV 7 miles from Sierra's house with his mother and pregnant girlfriend. However, it turned out that Garcia Torres' DNA was already in the police database, and he had a lengthy criminal history, including felony battery resulting in serious bodily injury and 3 separate counts of attempted kidnapping. In 2009, 3 different women had escaped an assault and possible abduction, all while in the car parks of Safeway stores in Morgan Hill. The women were either entering their vehicles or sitting in them, preparing to exit the car park, when they were ambushed by Garcia Torres, who, in one instance, used a stun gun on his victim as she climbed into her vehicle. In another instance, the victim had grabbed a pocket knife to defend herself, but Garcia Torres managed to grab her hand and put the knife close to her throat. Each time his plans were foiled, either by a passerby or the screams of his victims. While Sierra's case was highlighted on America's Most Wanted, little useful information came from the campaign. In the meantime, investigators kept a close eye on Garcia Torres, keeping him under 24/7 surveillance. Keen-eyed officers discovered that his VW Jetta was seen on surveillance cameras leaving the RV around 15 minutes before Sierra left home that morning. He would later tell investigators that he'd gone out for a solo fishing trip. But soon, investigators were able to seize the vehicle, and a forensic examination revealed that it contained Sierra's DNA, present on an inside door handle. Furthermore, strands of her hair were found wrapped around a rope in the car's trunk. Garcia Torres was subsequently arrested for the kidnapping and murder of Sierra LaMar. Sierra's family called off the search for her remains in March of 2015, 3 years after she disappeared. 2 years later, Garcia Torres finally went on trial for murder. Though prosecutors don't have a body, they sought the death penalty. Sierra's death is believed to have been a random and opportunistic act of violence on Garcia Torres' part. There is nothing to indicate the pair knew each other beforehand. In May of 2017, at the trial, Garcia Torres' defense lawyers argued that Sierra was simply a runaway, a misfit teenager who'd run away from home that, if she was indeed dead, it had nothing to do with their client. Garcia Torres claimed that they'd found his DNA on Sierra's belongings because of tissues he'd disposed of outside of his car. Despite the defense's efforts, the jury convicted Garcia Torres on all counts. He was also forced to register as a sex offender, as the prosecution had argued that the main motivation behind the crime was sexual gratification, noting that in both Sierra's case and those of his 3 assault victims, nothing had been stolen from them. Sierra's family attempted to get answers as to where her body was following the conviction, but Garcia Torres remained silent and refused to engage. He was spared the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He refused to share the whereabouts of Sierra's body once again in 2020. As a result, she is still considered a missing person. Her family are waiting to find her remains before they hold a funeral service, stating, "It didn't make sense without her body." Heather Elvis. In mid-December of 2013, 20-year-old Heather Elvis was feeling optimistic. She'd gotten a new job at a beauty parlor in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She'd started attending church, and she'd even begun dating again, following the end of a lengthy and messy affair with a married man. On the night of December 17th, Heather went on a late-night date with a man named Steve Schiraldi. The pair drove around looking at Christmas lights in the area, and then went to a shopping center car park, where Steve taught Heather to drive a stick shift. She sent several photos to her loved ones that night, including to her father, of her driving the vehicle. After the date, at around 1:15 a.m., Steve dropped Heather off at her apartment in Carolina Forest, South Carolina. She was last heard from around 30 minutes later, but after that, her whereabouts have never been conclusively established. At 1:35 a.m., Heather received a call from somebody using a payphone. The call lasted 5 minutes and appeared to greatly anguish the 20-year-old, who then phoned her roommate, Brianna Warrelman, who described her as seeming hysterical on the phone. Heather told Brianna that Sidney Mora had called her and told her that he was leaving his wife and the pair needed to meet immediately. Brianna advised her against going to the meeting, telling her to sleep on it, and that was the last time that friends or family heard from her. Sidney Mora was the 37-year-old married man Heather had an affair with months earlier. He'd caught her eye at a restaurant named the Tilted Kilt, where she worked as a waitress while Mora worked as a repairman. Heather tweeted regularly about Mora, though she never directly mentioned him by name. As her Twitter feed is still live, these posts can still be accessed, with Heather writing things like, "I got a taste for men who are older," and "One of these days I will drag that man into the mop closet and have my way with him, Lord have mercy." She also expressed being sexually interested in the guy who builds things at my job. Eventually, the tweets indicated that something had taken place between the two, such as, "Baby did a bad thing," and "I'm in way too deep, but watch me get deeper." According to her friends and colleagues, Heather was fairly open about the affair between the two, and she even pointed Mora out to Brianna, while Mora was similarly not concerned about the way people might view their relationship. When he wasn't working at the restaurant, he would stop by and bring Heather coffee and bagels. He reportedly was considering moving to Florida with his wife Tammy, and entertained the idea of asking the 20-year-old to come and be their nanny. According to Mora, the pair's affair only lasted through the month of September 2013. Eerily, during this time, Heather tweeted, "Once upon a time, an angel and a devil fell in love. It did not end well." Many have interpreted this tweet as marking the end of the affair, which Mora's wife found out about shortly afterwards. Brianna later told the police that Tammy had her husband call Heather to end the relationship, with Sidney reportedly telling Heather that she was nothing to him, and just someone who spread your legs. Brianna summed up the sour conversation by recalling that Mora basically tore Heather apart as a human being, and made her feel horrible about herself. Tammy later hounded Heather herself by sending her photographs of the married couple in sexual scenarios. But the drama of it all did not end there. Tammy was known to handcuff her husband to the bed at night so that he couldn't leave, and she also changed his phone password to one that only she knew. She even went as far to accompany him everywhere he went when he left the house, and had him tattoo her name on his lower waist, allegedly telling him, "If you didn't have this thing with that girl, this wouldn't be happening." For Heather, things continued to escalate. Tammy kept contacting her, sending threatening texts. On November 1st, Heather informed Tammy that she was no one you need to worry about anymore. Heather, for her part, mostly avoided engaging in the disputes that Tammy was trying to start. Shortly afterwards, she learned that the married woman had been harassing her place of work, telling them that Mora would no longer act as their repairman as long as Heather was employed there. Heather complained to Mora when he messaged, claiming that Tammy wasn't necessarily upset about the affair, as she too was seeing other people, but that he had lied about it. She replied, "I lost hours today because they sent me home after she kept calling." In the following weeks, the Moras went on holiday with their 2 children, returning on December 11th. By this time, Heather appeared to have moved on, and her life was on an upward trajectory, but she did have one concern. She had put on weight, and her co-workers had observed that her uniform had gone up several bra sizes, leading to speculation that the 20-year-old was pregnant. Her manager later stated that she'd taken a pregnancy test, which had returned with an error. As previously mentioned, Heather's movements after 1:45 a.m. on the night of December 17th are unclear, but 2 days later, her car was discovered 8 miles from her apartment at the Peachtree Landing boat launch along the Waccamaw River. The car was locked, and when it was opened by investigators, none of Heather's belongings were inside. There was no sign of her. Calls to her mobile went unanswered, and she was absent from her apartment and both of her jobs. In the following days, Heather's date was cleared of any wrongdoings, and searches of the nearby riverbed were conducted, but brought no new evidence to light. It was discovered that her mobile phone had remained active for around 2 hours after she had called Brianna, but detectives couldn't be sure that Heather was the one using it. At 2:30 a.m., she had made a call to the payphone, the same one that Maura had used, but the call went unanswered. The phone's data indicated that it was subsequently at a bar in Carolina Forest for 15 minutes, then driven 4 miles away to Augusta Plantation Drive, where it remained for another 15 minutes. Then there was a call placed to Maura's phone. Again, the call went unanswered. The phone returned to Heather's apartment, where another call was made to Maura, resulting in a 4-minute phone call. Then the phone moved to Peachtree Landing, where 3 calls were made to Maura, and all went unanswered. At 3:41 a.m., another call was made to him that also went unanswered. After that, data records for the device came to an end. CCTV later showed Maura at the payphone at 1:35 a.m. when he called Heather for the first time that night. Notably, 20 minutes earlier, he had been inside a Walmart store where he purchased cigars and a pregnancy test. Further CCTV between the Maura's house and Peachtree Landing showed that a dark Ford truck had passed several times, going both ways. Enhanced examination of the footage revealed that the truck belonged to Sydney Maura, and it was soon seized and searched. On February 21st, a search warrant was executed for the Maura's property, and after 11 hours, both Maura and his wife were arrested and charged with murder, kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and 2 counts each of indecent exposure. The latter charge was the result of sexual images discovered on their phones, which they'd taken in public areas, while the obstruction charge against Maura was because he had denied using a payphone to call Heather, only recanting his lie when he was confronted with CCTV footage of him using the phone. Public support was initially on the side of the Mauras because they'd used their social media accounts to paint Heather as an obsessed stalker, and in the coming months there were many ups and downs in the case. While most of the charges against the pair were dropped, the murder charges were done so without prejudice, meaning that both halves of the couple can be charged with murder again in the future if new evidence comes to light. In 2017, Maura was convicted of obstruction of justice, and though the kidnapping charges against him resulted in a hung jury at first, he was convicted 2 years later during a retrial. Furthermore, he was convicted of conspiracy to kidnap. Tammy Maura was charged and convicted of kidnapping and conspiracy to kidnap too. Both were given 2 30-year prison sentences. Further evidence provided at the trial included surveillance footage from the couple's home security system, which showed Maura cleaning the inside and outside of the car just 2 days after Heather was last heard from. Adding fuel to the theory that the pair killed Heather was the fact that Maura was burning the rags he was using to clean the vehicle. Despite the convictions, the Mauras have maintained their innocence and have stated that they don't know what happened to Heather that night. Many people close to the case appear to have different views on it and what happened. Tammy still paints Heather as an obsessed stalker, while Maura's family claims that he was the victim of abuse at the hands of his wife. Tammy denies being abusive and has often attempted to justify the behavior she is often accused of in regards to her husband. Friends of Heather's have stated that Maura told Heather that he wanted to continue a relationship with her and leave his wife. In March of this year, media outlets began to report that Maura was attempting to appeal his conviction and request a new trial, claiming that his original lawyer did very little work. He has also alleged that the prosecution withheld evidence and changed the timeline of events to make him look guilty. He was previously denied an appeal in 2023. Tammy was also denied her final appeal in 2024. Though the Mauras were found guilty of kidnapping, Heather's case is not quite resolved, as her body has not yet been recovered and no murder charges have been brought. A friend of the family told reporters that although the couple were convicted, the verdict rang a little hollow. Quote, "The emotions that everyone felt were empty. There was no reprieve from the heaviness that's there, because we don't know where Heather is." And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.